Hello and welcome, Cynthia Miller here, and today we are painting swift parrots. These ones are found in the southern hemisphere. Every once in a while we do something tropical, and I love the colors of these. We've got water starting with some lime green. If you don't have lime green, simply just use your favorite color of green and add yellow to it, and it will just perk it up. And we want these colors to really pop, and this is how they look in the tropical forest. This one is called, as I mentioned, the swift parrot, and it has been noted as being endangered. So simply because of the environmental issues of where its habitat is, it's so important that we all pay attention to what we are creating in nature and making sure that our nature and natural surroundings are well looked after. So as I mentioned, I've dabbed just a tiny little bit of water onto the bird feathers first. I want that paint to really flow easily, and it's very important to pay attention to where the wing is, and we're just starting with the belly first, and that green sort of comes up and covers the top of the head as well, and a little bit on the bottom there. But just play with the paint and let the yellow and green merge together, and just bring that that feeling of light feathered sort of a look to it. And I'm just making sure that those brush strokes are in the same direction that the feathers go. I'm adding a little bit of darker green here now, and letting that blend in while it's wet. Now sometimes it feels like there's a little bit too much water on the paper and you just have to let it dry. But in this particular exercise, we do want it to blend, so we do want it to stay wet. So it's sort of a challenge to keep it just that nice, perfect level of wet on your paper so that they'll continue to blend. We do let the back and the belly sort of dry before we put the colors on the head, because we don't really want those to blend too much. But we're going to put in just a dab of red there, and it is blending a little bit down sort of through the cheek area, right where the beak is, and we do want it to look like the feathers kind of blend into each other. It's the two spots on the top of the head that we want to make sure everything is dry before we add that to it, because those sections are quite distinct. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of color to the tail feather area. We've got two wings that the tips are a little bit striped, and so I'm going to show you how to do that as well after everything has dried. But I love this sort of fun play between outlining the wings with this darker turquoisey blue green and the lemon colored belly, the lime colored belly. So there I am adding the blue to the top of the head. As I mentioned, that you want to make sure that everything is dry before you add that on. And so what you can sort of think of is that there is an eye, circle eye in the middle of all these colors that go around the eye, sort of like a pinwheel type shape. I'm using the same red throughout, adding this to the tail feathers now, and they're quite long and rather graceful. They just sort of shape to a really nice sort of graceful point. And then what I'm doing here is sort of blending in the turquoisey blue with the red, because that underside is going to be the darker side, right? The belly is a little bit lighter, it sticks out a little bit more. Top of the head is lighter. That's where the light is. So just ensuring that everything's dry before you go in with the red at the top of the head. Use the same shade of red as you do for the tail feathers. So I'm using a nice shade of darker gray, and I'm outlining the feathers on the tips of the wings. Now, what I'm going to do is have that just sort of sit and dry, and then I'll go back and put a wash on it, and it will add a little bit more texture to them. And this really helps to define the shape of the wings. Now I'm just using that same paint on the paintbrush. It's very light, and just going in and outlining the beak, and I'll do the same. I'm just going to outline the beak, let it dry, and then I'll go back and add a little bit of water and use the pigment that's in the beak to give it a little bit of a gray shadow, so it's not all just white paper showing through. So this is what I'm doing to the tips of the wings now. Just taking a wet brush in there, smooshing around the paint and the water, and just helping it to blend a little bit. Now use a darker shade of the gray to outline the eye, and if you can outline it and then have a black circle within that circle that has two white marks on it, one on the top, one on the bottom, it's going to look as realistic as you can for that that level of detail and that much close up. And what you're going to have sort of emerge is the personality of the bird. Once you put the beak in there and the eye, they really do take on a personality. And you get to paint a second one so that you have sort of two together here. This is the way that the template is set up. So I used just a tiny bit of orangey brown for the feet, and now I'm outlining where the wings are, and the lower parrot, it's a little bit of a different shape. It's not sitting upright, so the two wings are clearly sort of set back, or at least facing towards the back. And what I'll do is just put a little bit of water in there, a little bit of my lime green, and this one has a few more spots of red blended in as I go. So I'll just sort of point that out, but basically starting with the lighter part of the bird, which is the underbelly in that beautiful lime color, mixing your greens and yellows right on the paper, and then outlining the wings, and sort of imagining that those are just a touch darker. And I play with these for a long time, so just keep bringing in your water, bring in your colors, blend them on the paper, and once you get to the point where you like the colors and you can let it dry, then again you can do the tips of the wings just like I did on the first one. So have fun with it. Clearly today I used my palette. I didn't mix very many colors, just the green and the yellow, but the no-name colors that I used came all in this beautiful palette that I bought not long ago, and it's perfect for a tropical sort of painting, because it's got these colors already mixed up: the beautiful turquoise green, the lime green, the yellow, the purples, and so I thought, well, I'll just try this out. So I'll post a picture of the many different colors we've got here in this palette. It's fun to use a palette that's already mixed up, but it's also really good practice to mix your colors. So usually when the paints have specific names like cadmium red or quinacridone rose, those are a higher quality pigment usually. If you buy a palette of paints and there's basically no name, they're already mixed up, you've already got a pink, there's already a purple in there, sometimes there's red and blue as well, but there's no name, those are usually a lower quality. They're still usually very good, but I can definitely sense the difference in the higher quality paints. And so I use this new palette for a while because the colors were just beautiful. The paint sort of had a little bit more of a feel like there was filler in them. So when I put water in them, there was actually sort of substance there. When I use higher quality paints, there's no substance. It's just either liquid or solid, if that makes sense. but it is a really good practice to take these colors and mix them. So your blues, your reds, your greens, your yellows, and you can get many, many different shades by mixing your colors as well, as opposed to just taking the shades that are already mixed up. I love doing both. I'm not really one or the other, but I used to just use the ones that I mixed, and then I thought, oh, I'm just going to try these ones that I don't have to mix. Of course, it goes a lot quicker if you don't have to mix your colors, but it's just not quite the same either. So take your pick. It's entirely up to you, and there's no right or wrong, good or bad. It's just whatever you get used to. And I've got to say that I've tried different qualities of paper too. There's cold press, there's hot press, there's different gauges, there's different levels of quality again. And so it's kind of interesting to try different ones just to see what it is that you like. So the higher quality ones you'll find are a little smoother. The hot press paper, I actually haven't used that very much, except I think it a couple times I've used samples of it, and it's quite smooth, I believe, from what I remember. But you find your favorite, and everybody's is different. And again, with the brushes, it's sort of the same. The one that I'm using here, it's become my favorite brush. It's a round brush. It's small. It's got a point, but it holds on to paint fairly well, and it's great for using on the side. And so I get a nice dry brush with this one. But the hairs are starting to get a little bit bristly, so you can see it's very well used. Now, this one I just pointed out here is quite small. I'm using this small one to outline the tail feathers. And, I think when we're doing bigger pieces, it's wonderful practice to use a bigger brush. Use the largest brush that you can. Hold the brush back from the bristles as much as you can. Here you can see I'm holding this like a pencil because it's quite fine, detailed work. But if you're doing a bigger piece of artwork, then it's a little bit looser to use a bigger brush and hold it further away from the bristles. So that's kind of my spin on paints, paper, and brushes. And I love trying something new. It's always something that is just a challenge to try something new, and you're able to sort of compare it to what you've done in the past. And I didn't know going into this that there would be so many different choices. So you sort of have to make a decision before you put your artwork together too. What kind of paper am I going to use? Which colors? What palette? It's really good to spend some time and plan out your artwork before you actually just jump in. I know a lot of times when I started painting, I would just jump in. I didn't really have a plan, and clearly it showed. And I think that's just part of the learning process, is to go through your different steps that you're going to take. Now this one, we did not put a background on a wash on the back. And that's one thing that you're going to want to plan out, is if you are going to put something on the back, are you going to do it before you start the painting, or are you going to leave that till the end? And so through experience, you get to know what will look better with a wash on the back. This is sort of stark looking with just the white. I did one copy of the Parrots with a bit of blue in the back. And I kind of liked it a little bit better because it just sort of put the parrot or the parrots in a place. If it's just white, then it just looks very sort of clean, but it's also not very interesting, right? So entirely up to you how you want to do that. Now I've just followed this exact same steps going through painting the second parrot. It's just a little bit different. There was a little bit more red that I blended in on the tummy area, a little bit on the back. But I love the way that these colors just pop off the paper. The red tail feathers really put some punch in it to it too. And they're, like I said, they're just sort of graceful, the way that these tail feathers just sort of feather off into nothing. And I took some time to get these wings to look the way that I wanted them to look. Now, clearly, I've got a little bit of darker green in between the wings, and I think that that is what really helps to give both of these wings more shape, so that you can actually see the shape of the wing pointed backwards. So like I said, just play with it, have fun with it. And I'm just finishing off here with a few more strokes to brighten deepen the red color with the tail feather. I'm going to go into the second bird here and apply very sort of an orangey brown. This is again my no-name colors for the feet, and you want a bit of texture. They're not completely smooth. There is a bit of texture in them, so if you can sort of make the texture between those two colors, and then we'll fill in the branch that they're sitting on here. But before we do that, let's just put a quick wash over the tips of their wings. We've already got the dry gray paint, sort of looks like stripes. And what the wash does is just use the pigment that's already there and just sort of blend it so it's not white paper. It's almost like that gray. It becomes gray. Now here I'm putting a nice water wash on the branch, and I'm using two colors. I'm using a turquoisey color at the top, and you can see it just sort of blends in to that water, and then I'm using a nice sort of charcoaly gray color on the bottom. And what happens is the absence of paint in the center makes it look like the highlight. So number one, it's creating that shape, but by combining these two colors, it almost sort of mirrors the color of eucalyptus tree. I really like the way this turned out because of these two colors. It's such an interesting two colors to mix together. So I do this to each of the sections, 3 different sections, one at a time. And I wanted to just note too that I painted on the feet first, and that way you can sort of better gauge where that branch runs through. I've done this many times, do the branch and then you can't get the feet to look like right with the body, and so I just thought that the putting the feet there first, and then if they paint on a different way, then you can always sort of change the trajectory of the branch a certain way. So just have a really close look at that, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you in one of our paint circles, and if not, I hope you enjoy doing this video. I think this is one of my favorite ones, so enjoy. I'm going to just play some of these bird sounds that I recorded. This is my front yard, believe it or not.